welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar today from PreSales Collective. I'm Brian Land. I'm a PreSales Collective ambassador here in Austin, Texas. Thank you for joining us this morning, this afternoon, evening, wherever you are around the globe. Thanks, Mia, for joining, Asia Pac for being with us. And why don't we go ahead and launch and get started here? We're gonna first start with a quick poll. So, which option best describes your current role? I'm gonna answer this myself. I'm in sales leadership. I lead pre-sales globally for LucidWorks, and I've been an individual contributor back in the early days at Siebel, Ariba, and Deca. This is my fourth position. Before here at LucidWorks, I did get to well, this is running here. We'll close it out here in a minute. But you know, I was able to work for a startup for about 6 years, and I was able to try some sales leadership, sales, individual contributor, help top of funnel marketing, etc. So I saw a lot of good stuff there, some fun stories. All right, so yeah, feel free. Looks like we're about to close it here. Poll closed. Looks like 67% were individual contributors today. Great, that's awesome. Thanks for doing that. So thanks again. We have today as a panel, a great panel. We're going to understand non-traditional pre-sales career paths. I just talked a little bit about myself, what I've over my career, and we're going to get a little bit more in the grungy detail here in a minute. But we have a great panel today. We have Kelsey Bar-Natras from MongoDB, Margot Tajera from Salesforce, and Ann Mal Thiara from Clary. So thank you, panelists. And thank you especially for Reprise demo automation software, for sponsoring us, for making this happen. So we really appreciate it. And so quick agenda, you know, we're going to do a quick welcome to PreSales Collective. We're already kind of into that a little bit, but we're going to spend the bulk of the time today in that panel, asking questions, a lot of great back and forth with the panel today, probably 30, 35 minutes, and then we'll open it for a live Q&A at the very end, if you can stick around for that. And then finally, a summary and announcements. We have some announcements for future webinars and such. So why don't we go ahead and get into it? So first of all, thank you for making PreSales Collective possible. Can't believe it's been almost 2.5 years for me. I found PreSales ESC Slack channel March of 2020. And it's been great collaborating with this. So thank you for participating today in other webinars and also in the Slack and also on site as well. And so I can't believe it's already 20,000 global pre-sales professionals today. That's amazing. So how do we get the most out of today's webinar? First of all, ask some questions, using the Q&A function. And you can be active in the chat, even if it's not a question itself. Just feel free. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and introduce the PreSales Collective, her webinar panelists today. We have Margot, Kelsey, and Anmal. Maybe you can start to introduce yourself, maybe a little bit about what's your current role, where you're based, what's your purview, and how long have you been in pre-sales today?
Sure, I'll kick things off. Hi, everybody. I am Kelsey Bar-Natras, and my role currently, I've been out of pre-sales for going on 2 years now in total. I am head of event content at MongoDB. I'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but in total, I was in pre-sales for over 6 years at a company called Sprinkler. And then I spent about a year in sales enablement before I made the jump to my current role. And really what my team does is we work very closely with our C-suite executives and a few VPs on all of our corporate messaging. So basically, when we do a big event like MongoDB World, which we just had in June, my team is responsible for the strategy, the full build and execution with lots of partners from product marketing, design, et cetera, to basically build keynote presentations that our executives deliver as a way to kick off our campaign messaging for a year. And then my team also really helps with a lot of our other, what we call tier one, our big first party events that we do around the globe, taking those keynotes, delivering them by different presenters, contextualizing and creating the content and making it localized for different locations. And we also manage our breakout programs. So at each of these events, we'll have over 100 different breakouts typically. So my team is also responsible there. So I'm excited to talk about how I made the jump from pre-sales, which really is my true DNA. And I loved being in pre-sales to what I'm doing today. So nice to meet everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Margo. How about you, Kelsey?
Oh, I think you might have meant me, so I can go ahead and go next. So my name is Margot Tajera, or Tajera. I am a senior solution engineer at Salesforce, focusing on the Tableau stack. As some of you may know, Tableau was acquired by Salesforce, so now we are under the Salesforce umbrella and family. In November of this year, that's going to mark my 3 years as an SE. And what I do on my day-to-day is I talk to a lot of customers. I'm talking to my account executives that I'm aligned to. And then when I talk to customers, I'm talking about how Tableau can solve their business problems and needs. So it's really exciting. I was a Tableau user before I even joined the company. So I really do talk about my past experience and stories there. So it's really exciting and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks.
And I'll wrap it up. Hi, everyone. My name is Anmol. I was an SE for 3.5 years. Recently moved over to product management earlier this year, back in February. In my current role as a product manager, I essentially own a part of our product called Forecasting for Clarity, where we essentially help organizations forecast their revenue streams and go-to-market functions in a single place. And so my essentially purview, my day-to-day is honestly, general managing that, understanding what our customer needs are, understanding how we can take that and figure out a vision and roadmap for our product, where we want to go in the future, and just kind of take that along as our company grows and changes. So I'm super excited for that. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of walk you through the transition that I had from pre-sales to product in the later part of this conversation.
Awesome. Great background, everyone. Yeah, why don't we just jump into some discussion, maybe about career journey, if you can kind of give a 30-second overview. Yeah, who wants to jump in first?
You can go first again.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So my career journey, I actually cut my teeth agency side. That's where I started my career after doing my master's in the UK. I forgot to mention I'm based in London, but I'm originally from Washington State. So I worked agency side. I had a large client relationship with Microsoft there, which is how I became acquainted with the technology company Sprinklr. Basically berated them on LinkedIn and begged for a job, and ended up being their first pre-sales consultant for Northern Europe. I'd never done it before, but I feel like having that agency side, client side perspective on how the tech worked was a really great transition into pre-sales. Naturally, being the only, pre-sales rep for a variety of different sales reps, regions, customers, et cetera, I got great exposure to lots of different clients. I do a lot of public speaking. I do stand up in my spare time. I do theater and things like that. So I always really aligned my career with how can I be in front of the largest, most important group possible as much as possible. So I also started doing a lot of our marketing events for Sprinklr, regional keynotes, things like that, which is how I ended up at MongoDB. So they reached out to me. They had this dedicated keynote team for the CTO, the CEO, and the chief product officer. And I thought, that's a job. I get to work on keynotes full time, basically. So I jumped at the opportunity because first and foremost, what I loved doing at Sprinklr was getting my hands on what our story is, what our message is. And at MongoDB, I get to be a huge part of defining what our story is and how the public understand who we are. So I've been at MongoDB since February, so still pretty new, just hit 7 months now. And that's 30 seconds-ish of my career.
That's awesome. I love the stand-up experience too.
Awesome. I guess I'll go ahead and go next. So I'll try to keep this short, but after college, I went into the theme park industry. So I'm from Florida. A lot of people's dream, especially when we go to school in Florida, is to work for Walt Disney World. So I did work for Walt Disney. I also worked for Universal Studios, both as an analyst and an industrial engineer, because that was my major, industrial engineering. And I mainly worked on auditing and process improvement for their food and beverage programs, restaurants all across City Walk and all across also the Walt Disney World parks. So during that time, I was introduced to Tableau. Both of those companies were using that tool, Tableau, as their business intelligence software. I actually got really passionate about Tableau. I love the visualization. I love the ease of use, the creativity. So I could combine my technical data analyst skills with creativity with Tableau. And that led me to going for being a product consultant at Tableau. And then with the acquisition of Salesforce, Salesforce acquiring Tableau, my title changed from product consultant to solution engineer. So my path is really interesting, just based on what I studied, my background, and also just kind of, stumbling on the solution engineering path after the acquisition. So that's kind of my journey in 30 seconds.
Thank you.
And to wrap it up for me, so I would say I'm pretty early on in my career. After graduating college, I was fortunate enough to actually land a sales engineering internship, which is a little bit unheard of, but I was very fortunate and lucky to get that opportunity. And so I essentially went from someone with no sales experience to learning everything about revenue and sales engineering, consulting through that internship, and essentially rolling over full time. And ended up doing that for about 3.5 years. And I think with sales engineering and working with many go-to-market teams, it inspired me to go back to school, and recently got my MBA, which then kind of facilitated, different openings in my careers and where I want to head towards, and different interests that are apart from, go-to-market and revenue and sales engineering, which ended up landing me into product management. And so I would say, still a little early on in my career, but over the past 3.5 years of being SC, I've definitely learned a lot. So I'm excited to share more.
Thanks, Emil. Yeah, I also got my started in sales engineering as an intern. I was an intern at Nortel Networks, a big telecom company, but I was in a lab. And a little bit background on myself. I guess I was a terrible developer. And one of my first tasks was to build a screen pop with Coachable software, the CRM software, the original OG CRM, and I had to give these demos in the demo environments to Coachable executives. They had big customers that would run in, show these Nortel screen pops. And so that's when they offered me, hey, do you want to move to This is in Dallas, so you can move to California and be a sales engineer at Coachable. So that's where I started my individual contributor career there, and it was awesome. Learned a lot of best practices there. From there, a few other Ariba and Deca, and a few leadership roles, and I think we're going to get into my sales hiccups before LucidWorks here, but that's my my background in a nutshell. So that's what kind of got me interested in pre-sales, and that's the next question. Was it's just every day. Basically, they just asked me, "Hey, do you want to do this on a day-to-day basis instead of just developing all day?" Where at Coachable, it was. It was maybe 5 demos a week, a little bit of coding, maybe 10 to 20% of my, and it was in a scripting language like Perl. So, spend 10 to 20% of your time developing instead of full-time developing, which I thought was really boring myself. And I was, like I mentioned, pretty terrible at it, but maybe kind of go in reverse order. Emil, like what got you interested in pre-sales?
My cousin, actually. My cousin
Okay.
was an SC at Nutanix at the time. Now he's over at Dell. And I graduated college with more of a technical major. I did computer science and math, but at the same time, I kind of knew that even though I did that major, I felt that being, a software developer or engineer wasn't really my calling. And the reason why is I actually worked retail in college, and I really loved that customer experience and the customer interaction, and helping people and being a consultant. And just interacting with people on a daily basis, and be something customer based facing. And so at the time, I didn't really know sales engineering existed. It's a role that wasn't as apparent as it is now. And I think that's a lot to do with PreSales Collective, the amount of work that they've been doing over the years. But once I kind of understood that there's a hybrid role, which involves technicality, but also customer facing, where you can help solution with people, be a trusted advisor, and be in a customer facing role without losing the sense of, problem solving and really understanding a solution at a deeper level. That got me really interested. Now, it's hard to get a pre-sales job out of college at the time. So hence why I was fortunate enough to get an internship But I have to say my cousin really interested me at the time, and I loved it ever since. So that's my story.
Yep, same here. Thanks. Chelsea or Margot, do you have any stories around what got you interested in pre-sales?
Love new business. I love new business. I love doing new business agency side. I would say I'm not as talented in long-term client relationship management, not because, I mean, all of us could do it. It's just, do you want to do it? Whereas I loved the rush of being able to meet tons of customers, especially in the early days when Sprinkler was in its infancy and it didn't have as many sort of capabilities as it did by the time I left. You could go in and show all the capabilities tailored to their use case. It didn't take that much time to set up because it's so configurable. And I was so passionate about the technology because given that it got its start in social media, my role at my agency was in social media. A lot of us, in our sort of age group are social media digital natives. So it was something that felt I was an expert in already, at least from a consumer standpoint. So I loved being able to talk to businesses about what they could do because similar to what Admo said, it wasn't just about here's our tech and what it does. It's digital transformation. It's transforming your business. And so being able to go to the Dyson campus in Malmesbury, UK, when I was agency side, I wasn't even allowed to talk to like the most junior person at our accounts. Whereas in pre-sales, it was like I got to cut the queue or cut the line, depending on where you are, to be able to talk to the CMO or, the head of digital or whoever. It was so cool being able to talk to all these amazing brands and getting to show them what they do. And because I was the first on the ground for pre-sales, I got to put my name on all these amazing new logos that we brought in. So it was really the rush of new business for me that got me excited.
Awesome.
And then really quickly for me, I do feel like the solution engineering role is perfect for me. Years ago, I don't even think I heard the word solution engineer ever until maybe a few years ago. And so it's perfect for me because it's very customer facing. I love talking to customers, but also it's kind of like a consulting role. I've always wanted to be a consultant. I had family members that were consultant for big tech companies. And I thought, man, how am I going to become like them? And so I kind of stumbled onto the solution engineering role, again, with the acquisition with Salesforce and Tableau. But again, it's perfect for me. And I've been here for a little bit, close to 3 years. So it's great to help companies figure out how Tableau can solve their business needs, which is really, really exciting to do.
Yeah, same here. I love that consultant. And we'll talk about trusted advisor status. That really surprised me, as I during my career, is like not being tied to statement of works and a project, but just being consultative to customers and prospects all day, every day. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. What about some common mistakes people should think about, in their career journey? You think about any common mistakes they should be aware of? I can go first because like I mentioned in my previous job, it was a startup, 6 years, and I I owned a couple of AEs in the field. So, I owned the commit to the board, and that was, I learned, and also at one point in the first couple of years anyway, before we grew up, is the top of the funnel. So how do we get leads, and how do we nurture those leads, and how do we then close those deals towards the end? And that was about 2 or 3 years of work, and that was really difficult. It's easy to think about, well, the sales guy gets all the money, I'm doing all the work. But once you get in their shoes, not just working the account, but I think it's even tougher to create that demand and awareness at the top of the funnel. It's really, once you live in those shoes, you understand just how difficult it is, and you are tied to those numbers. You're tied to MQLs, and then you're tied to the commit to the board, like I mentioned. So I came running back to pre-sales 5 years ago when I interviewed here at Lucid Works. So that's just start to think about the grass may seem greener, but think about the downsides as well. Talk to people as well. I didn't talk to anybody. I just kind of dove right into it. Anyone else have any advice? Cool. What about this? When it's time to leave a job, transition into a new career, of course, different opportunities. So when do you know? Like, what's the timing of it?
I think one thing to bear in mind, knowing when it's time to go, it's always important to be open to the idea of other companies. I think it's easy to feel like, you've got your friends, you've got all these other things that are part of the current company that you're at, but for your own career, it's good to mix things up and go somewhere else and, experience a different company culture, a different technology, whatever it may be, to just mix up your skill set. I also think it's good to really question on a regular basis, like every 6 months, am I happy being an IC or am I happy being a people manager, wherever you are? Because I think there are always going to be opportunities to flip, sort of back and forth. And I think being honest with yourself about what are you most passionate about? And if, like me, you start to hit a bit of a ceiling on the IC route and you don't want to go into pre-sales management, I think that's a really good time to start thinking, I need to think about something else. And the skills we have in solution consulting, pre-sales, solution engineering, whatever you want to call it, are so transferable. I think that's what I've learned in my experience, that it's important to start doing, in my experience, what I did was those marketing engagements. So when can I speak on behalf of the company? When can I try things like that on? When can I do different things at my current company that build my skill set, make me more marketable to an external company or recruiter, and really start to open my eyes to, do I want to stay in pre-sales right now? Do I want to try something different? So I think once you start to feel like you're hitting those ceilings, or you don't know if you want to flip back and forth, or you don't know if there's an existing opportunity at your company, I think those are times for you to be honest with yourself and say, it's probably time to move on and challenge myself and do something different.
For me, I think the part of the question that is probably applicable is transitioning into a new career. And I think for me, the moment in time that I knew I wanted to change, personally, is when I felt that I wasn't being challenged anymore in my current position. I quickly moved from commercial to mid-market enterprise in my 3 years. And to, Kelsey's point, you work with a lot of customers and you see it all. And so after my 3.5 years, I got to a point where I kind of hit this plateau where I personally felt that I've seen it all. And I wasn't being mentally challenged in the role, which is not a bad thing, right? I think that means that I've mastered the product, I've mastered the kind of the role of being an SC at my current company. But for me, I don't want to be, quote unquote, bored. I want something new. I want something that challenges me on a daily basis. And that keeps me motivated, that keeps me going. And so the tipping point for my decision to switch out of pre-sales and go into product management was essentially the point where I felt that the role that I was currently in wasn't, challenging enough for me, since I've seen a lot of it. And so I want something new that I could start over from scratch and kind of build my resume again and build my different skill sets in a different part of business. And so that was kind of the point where I felt that I needed to change.
Thanks. What about some ways SEs can make an impact in their organization outside the sales cycle? Margot, do you have any?
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. So for me, and I think this applies to any role, not just solution engineers, but I think kind of it's interesting being an SC, because we're always thinking, how can we impact our customers? How can we impact change? I think if you have that same mindset within your organization, it's going to be amazing, right? So like, if you see that, maybe a certain group of SCs or a certain group of AEs need enablement, and you can provide that teach back or kind of help them, right? That's a side project that's making an impact in your organization. Are you involved in ERG groups? If there's no ERG groups or there's no mentorship program, you can create that. You can actually be the founder of groups in organizations. I mean, how amazing would that be to tell that story? So I think you don't have to have a leader title to be a leader in your role and in your company. And it's just a great way to make your brand inside of your company and also outside of your company. So taking on projects, being a mentor, being a part of those programs that exist. Again, if they don't exist, create them. That's kind of my advice there.
Thanks. Yeah, that's, you just mentioned some, you don't have to be a leader to create those leadership processes but that's a great way to become a leader if you're an IC. I've noticed over the companies like the SEs that take ownership and create initiatives on their own, people notice that. So it's a great comment. What about, any inspiration, like what inspired you to move out of pre-sales? Kelsey, I think you might have mentioned it earlier.
I've talked a little bit about this. It was a combination of hitting that ceiling, realizing I needed to do something else. But I think it's you have to take a little bit of a risk. You have to take a chance on yourself. You have to think, I am capable of doing something else. For me, being in pre-sales at a tech company feels really secure because you have a number next to your name all the time to say, I did X amount of work. I have all these logos. I've generated all this revenue for the company, or I've been a part of, revenue generating activities. Moving into a role I have now, which is much more creative, arguably much more high visibility because I'm interfacing with our C-suite on a weekly basis. It's not something where I can look in Salesforce and point to a great shiny number and say, this is what I've done. So I think what made me and what inspired me to move out was just thinking, I need to take a risk. I've been doing this for a while and I know I don't want to do people leadership. So let me in pre-sales. So let me do people leadership somewhere else in a way that I'm managing a small strategic team that has high impact activities that we're attached to. I think it was taking some of what I loved from pre-sales and bringing it into a new role and taking that risk. I think I realized I wasn't bored necessarily, but it did start to feel like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I think once it feels that way, it is time to move on.
Awesome. And Molly, you mentioned, what inspired you to get into pre-sales. What about out of pre-sales?
My customers actually inspired me to get out of pre-sales. And the reason why I say that is throughout my time being an SC, I've really gotten to know what our customers want. At the end of the day, right? You are that trusted advisor, you are that consultant. And so as our product expert and knowledgeable about your product, you're finding ways to solution with your customers to essentially figure out how can your product best revolutionize their go-to-market function. In this case, their revenue operations from Clary's product standpoint. And as I worked with so many customers across different segments, I began to realize that I could have a huge impact on product because I personally believe sometimes there's a disconnect between what go-to-market sees and what product management sees. And I think that's apparent in every organization. And so the inspiration for me was, what valuable lessons and teachings can I take from my customers and things that I learned from pre-sales and apply that to product management, and perhaps help, provide an impact or change or inspires PMs to think of things differently when they think about a roadmap, or they think about customer conversations, or think about how to solution and work with the go-to-market teams. And so I think just learning and learning from our customers was the reason why I moved to PM, because I wanted to make a difference in that department, and come from a point of view where I'm not building product just to build product, and perhaps just to, to say like, I think this is the best way to approach, our roadmap, but more of like, this is what I've heard from our customers. This is what our customers want. And I'm going to be more customer focused on our roadmap and bring those kind of insights to the product team.
Yeah, so true. I've seen some of the best product people really creating products, for that product market fit, and also cover all the competitive differentiators and gaps, and come from SEs, because SEs were the tip of the spear. We hear customers, what they say every day, what we hear in the field. So yeah, I totally agree with that. That's awesome. How about you? Kelsey? What inspired you to move out of pre-sales?
I do think I covered that in terms of a few minutes ago, but I don't know, Margot, if you have anything that you wanted to add.
Yeah, well, I'm probably the only person on this call that's still in pre-sales. But I think if we're talking about maybe the transition outside, because again, I did a pretty big pivot from industrial engineering to pre-sales. And so, for me, I always follow my passion. So if I'm not passionate about something, then it's going to be hard for me to kind of either move on or, kind of pivot or change. But for me personally, I follow kind of what I'm passionate about. And I felt that being in the solution engineering role and pivoting there was great for me. But yeah, I'm still in the solution engineering world.
Awesome. What about transferable skills? What have you used to get into your next role? Kelsey, maybe you can answer that one.
Absolutely. This is something I feel really passionately about for solution consultants, because I feel like a lot of what we do can get lost in the noise and you don't quite realize all the superpowers you have. So what really helped me with my role, the marketable skills I had that made me attractive for this new role, storytelling. Storytelling is number one. You will be pressed to find people who are truly good storytellers. You'll have people who can get into the minutia and give you a bulleted list of what the product does or whatever, but to be able to rise out of that noise and be able to tell a story and get people excited, be able to cater to multiple personas, multiple levels within an organization. Pre-sales consultants do that every single day. And the other skill that I think is married with storytelling is really being able to take something that is flat and boring, a bit of technical release information or a new product or feature or whatever, and really make that exciting and tangible to someone by being able to pair together, the why. This is what it is. This is why it matters. This is why it matters for you. And I think the other one is strategic thinking. I think, again, in lots of tech organizations, you find people who can really operate within their silo or within their area of expertise. But I think SCs are so talented at thinking strategically about how to use their time with a customer. If you've only got an hour or 90 minutes for a demo, how am I going to address all of their needs in a way that doesn't feel rushed, that gives them what they need? How do I ask the right questions that really get to the heart of the matter? How do I avoid asking the wrong questions that take us down the wrong path of problems we can't solve? Sometimes that requires a bit of duct tape on our sales partners' mouths. But you know what I mean? The skills within pre-sales are so varied in terms of what we bring to the table. So I think being able to communicate those externally would make SCs and SAs so attractive for so many roles. I mean, I'm trying to hire an SA desperately for my team right now because I know it's what my team needs to do well. So I could go on and on, but those are the main things.
Awesome. Anyone else? What about kind of biggest challenges or rewards you face when making your career move, like either in or out of pre-sales?
I think for me, it's more about rewards and challenges. And I think the biggest reward for me, I think in pre-sales, was two things. One is customer quotes and feedback after they implemented our solution. I think is one of the most rewarding aspects of the job, because you revolutionized that. You brought the change management, you worked the deal cycle with your AE partner. You did a ton of demos. You ran a months and months long sales cycle. You did multiple pitch decks. You did a POC. You did all that work. And then they come back to you on LinkedIn or email, and they're saying that they rolled out successfully, and it's been one of the most widely adopted solution at the company, and everything was so smooth, and they want to hire you to be an SC at the company. I think is literally one of the most rewarding parts of the job as in pre-sales. And now I guess one of the most rewarding parts in product management is being able to create products that inspire my go-to-market partners, inspires my SCs, inspires my AEs to go out and sell, make their lives easier, right? I think when I push a product from creation to full out, ready to go to market, and I see how excited my SC partners are or my sales partners are, because this has been something that their customers have been asking for, or they've been looking for months or if not years. I think it's so rewarding because now I know that the impact I'm doing more on the front end in the sense of creating products and taking that to market, it's providing a huge impact on how our SCs can solution with our customers, or how our salespeople can essentially win business, and move up in their careers. So I think those are the two most rewarding parts of both roles.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll in terms of challenges, I remember when, I mentioned working in a lab doing screen pops at Nortel Networks. And, when I first moved over at Siebel, I was like, well, that's not how we give demos. We don't talk about the features and caller ID lookup, and here's the screen, and go through all the fields on we really have to learn about the business and what value we're delivering. It's agent productivity. We're making the agent more productive by solving the case faster. So, and that's only one use case. And I've had, through my career now, I've gone through 20 different use cases. So I love that, just learning about a business and what are their current state, their challenges, and how does technology solve that. So that was one of the earlier challenges, but very rewarding now, 20 plus years later, getting to talk to all different types of customers and companies and markets and things like that. What about, how do you think about continuing your career outside or career inside your organizations versus leaving to a new company? Any thoughts about that?
I can kick us off here. I think one really important thing that I didn't even realize was a part of my consideration process when I was in the interview process for my role now at MongoDB was where a company is in their trajectory versus where your current company is. That will give you a lot of information for how they're investing in, your new team or new role. MongoDB is roughly twice the size in terms of revenue as my old company. That gave me, the information that I was going to have different access to different resources. The company was further on just in its, existence, which made me feel like I was going to have people who could really, really teach me something. Whereas, my old company, I'd been there for so long, and I was looking for those new mentors, new peers, new people with different skill sets to mix things up for me. So I think sometimes it's thinking about, what can your company invest in? Can they continue to invest in you? Can you create a new role for yourself? As Margot said, one of the things about pre-sales consultants everywhere is I think the best ones have that entrepreneurial spirit, who look at a problem and go, if there's not a solution, I'm going to come up with it. I'm going to lead it. I'm going to run it. I'm going to get other people involved. And if you can do that for your own career, you'll be in a really good place, because the sad thing I had to realize over time is no matter how talented I was as an IC, my leaders don't have the capacity to spend their time going, Kelsey, what's the perfect role for her? How can we build something that will really help her career flourish? You're lucky if you've got a leader like that. You're lucky if the company looks out for you like that. But most just don't have the capacity. That's on us to think about ourselves and think, okay, how am I going to over-index and go further into my strengths? How am I going to, mitigate my weaknesses, or, help develop even areas of my weaknesses into strengths? And can you do that at your current company? Can they invest in it, or do you need to go somewhere else and mix things up?
Awesome. Thanks, Kelsey.
To add on to that, I would say another important aspect, and this may similar to what Kelsey was saying, is culture. I think the culture of a company is extremely important in deciding whether you want to continue your career there or a different place. If a company has a culture where they're promoting within, and there's opportunity for you to grow and expand into different teams and different career paths naturally, and they're very supportive of that, just like they are at my company right now, I think it makes sense to stay inside your organization, because you're already well established there, right? And you're essentially taking your skill set that you learn from one role and you apply it to a new role. So I think for me, I think culture has is a huge component of that decision making, in addition to what Kelsey was saying about the company growth, the mission, and where they're heading to. I think both of them kind of go in tandem.
Absolutely. Well, cool. I know we're bumping up against the clock here, but let's do one more question. And, have you used any mentorship, referrals, or networking in your career? Margot, I think you may have.
Yeah. So I love mentorship. I've been a mentor for years, since I was a junior in college, and I've been mentored by hundreds of people. And I think that's because I was never afraid to ask for help. I was never afraid to connect with people and create those relationships. And honestly, one of the companies that kind of trained me to be that person was the Walt Disney Company. So they actually required us in the first few months of us being at Disney to do meet and greets. So they required us to have 1 to 2 meet and greets with people in the company every single month. And so that was to learn other parts of the business, to expand our network, to expand kind of and understand what other parts of the business is the Walt Disney Company involved in, which is of course a lot. And so I kind of took that blueprint and applied it to everything else. So I do a lot of meet and greets, even at Salesforce, meeting different people from different parts of the business. But one thing I do want to wrap up with this topic is it's not, because a lot of people say it's who you know. I think it's more about who knows you. That's the most important thing. So who knows who you are as a person, who knows your work ethic, who knows your drive, all of the impacts that you've made. That piece is going to get you, I personally believe, where you want to be, both either if it's internally in your current company or if it's outside. So who knows you, not necessarily who you know, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely. I love it. I 100% agree. So I think we're going to transition now to we have a couple of questions coming in through chat from the audience. I'll go ahead and ask the first one here for the panel. For someone who is brand new to pre-sales, coming from a near 8-year career as a post-sales functional consultant, how do I make sure I'm measuring my success properly and really take advantage of this amazing job role? Anybody want to take that on?
I think being passionate about the clients that you're working on and their use cases, that will be the thing that really sets you apart, because now that I'm not necessarily on the client side, but because of my role, I'm getting presentations now from tech companies for my team's remit. And honestly, like customers are coming into these meetings slammed with other things. They're sort of like, why am I here? What is this? And if you are passionate about what you are presenting, the solution design you've put together, the use cases you think you can solve, that will really come through. So really honing in on that, that will also make a name for yourself with your sales partners, with your people leaders. They will seek you out and they will want you more involved in more strategic projects because they know you bring that, and you're not just sort of like, oh, let me just do what I did over here for this, for this customer, the rinse and repeat method. I think also I got great advice from a leader a few years ago to always keep a running doc of your successes. Always check in with what you've done well, the little wins, the big wins, and have that to share with your manager on a regular basis so that you yourself are, again, trying to really remember the great things you've done. It's so easy to focus on, oh, when we didn't get something over the line and wasn't that horrible and what a waste of time. But if you focus on all the wins, both big and small, and you share that with your manager, I think that's a really good way to go deep into this role and really maximize what you can get out of it as well.
Awesome. Love it. Yep. I think, the passion definitely is great, especially coming through Zoom, not just, feeling it on the other side of a Zoom camera, but also just, you can sense passion when SEs or pre-sales folks are just building new initiatives. Like, I'm going to build this new demo or framework or something like that. New tool. It's great. That comes across as well. So second question here, what quality skills should one exhibit the most when trying to land an entry-level position to an SE to prospecting companies or recruiters? That's an interesting one. Anyone want to take that?
So just to make sure I understand, they're asking like what skills would be needed for an entry-level SE role?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I can take that one. Yeah, so the skills that I would say is being able to communicate. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for in interviews. How you communicate, how you set up the story is kind of what Kelsey talked about a lot, is how do you frame the story of why something could impact a customer. And that's honestly, when I see all the people that I mentor that are trying to become SEs or that are SEs now, I notice that their interview process always involves some kind of demo, some kind of homework assignment. And that demo, part of that interview process, is for the company to see your storytelling ability. How do you communicate? Can you make a technical topic into a really concise, path or presentation? Because that's what we have to do every single day as an SE. And I think another note that I just want to say, I have seen SEs at Tableau that they came from government backgrounds, biologists, art majors, and they're some of the best SEs I've ever seen. So look for those companies that will give you the opportunity, because it only takes one. And once you have that opportunity, your world is going to expand. So don't give up if you don't have sales experience. I didn't have sales experience. Just go for who can give you the opportunity, and make sure you're practicing those communication skills as well.
And to add on to that, at least from my personal experience, when I landed my SE internship, I think the two qualities that really helped me throughout my career was one, being coachable. I think that's one of the qualities that my manager, my VP, really loved and looked for in hiring. Is when you're an entry-level SE, you don't know everything. At the time, I didn't know what a forecast was, or anything that has to do with anything sales related. Everything I had to learn on the job. And so being coachable, and the second part to that is being able to take feedback and use that and in a positive way, whether you're giving it or receiving feedback, I think are two qualities that will definitely help in landing those jobs. And I think anyone who's recruiting or anyone's looking to hire, I think those qualities are extremely important for any SE or entry-level SE, because there's a lot to learn, right? And so over the years, you will learn a lot. And as long as you're coachable and you're able to receive feedback well and work on yourself and take that feedback and continue to grow and learn, I think you'll be very successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to add on to that, Brian, actually, really quick. I think Anmol makes some fantastic points there around being coachable. One sort of branch off of that I think is really important when you're starting out is, are you an honest person? Are you honest about things you don't understand? I mean, in the MarTech space that, you know, I'm still in a peripheral kind of way, you get people in interviews waffling on and on and on using buzzwords. And clearly they don't know the answer to what you've asked, but they're just talking and hoping they'll get there. I think pre-sales leaders and anybody who's been in pre-sales sees right through that. So don't even bother. Just if you don't understand something, ask sharp questions. Show that you know how to turn things around and give yourself time to think, or, you know, say, I actually don't know the answer to that. Can you give me a little bit more context? And maybe I can go away and have a think about it and come back to you. That shows maturity to me. That shows integrity. And I think when people do the opposite because they feel under pressure, that's a really good indication for how quickly they're going to crack in front of a customer. So practicing that honesty, integrity early on and showing how coachable you are, showing that you're really open and honest, will make you look so much more authoritative. And honestly, a lot of new grads are so scared. They're not going to do that, but it's like, go against what you think you should do. If you don't have the answer, say you don't have the answer.
Awesome. 100% agree. We have another question just came in, and it's expressed about technical background, you know, and it's, you know, getting technical knowledge for a non-tech person is not easy. And how important is technical background in a pre-sales manager career? And so in my company, pre-sales managers are a mixture of sales, pre-sales, project management. The need of tech knowledge in pre-sales is growing. I can start with that and then open it up. But, you know, here at LucidWorks, we're a very technical platform. We're machine learning, data science platform for search. And I know MongoDB is the same, Databricks, Snowflake, Splunk. That's a different type of pre-sales, because at hiring, right, you're doing a lot of coding, but you also have to understand business value and how those technologies and platforms can drive business value. So that's, I think, absolutely required, maybe even in a manager role as well. So you have to know different aspects. And I'd like to get your background too, Kelsey, in terms of that as a manager, especially. But, you know, there are also a lot of most of the companies out there hiring, maybe Zendesk, maybe Salesforce, maybe, you know, you can have an expertise in the business and maybe some configuration, point and click, declarative type of configuration. So maybe technical background's not necessarily required, but I'd be interested in getting your thoughts.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, isn't it? And to be clear, I've never worked in our solution architect team at MongoDB. At Sprinkler, the tech lift, because I mean, Sprinkler's built on MongoDB too, which is quite cool. The tech lift is less because it's configurable technology, but still, you do have to be technical. I think it's interesting because I didn't have a quote unquote technical background when I got my first pre-sales job, but because I grew up in this era of like, adding a background to my MySpace page, building my social media profiles. I had context for what the platform needed, and I had an intuitive way of getting to grips with it. However, I think like anything, it depends. It depends on where you are in your career. I think certainly managers that have that technical background, it's just sort of, it's like a beautiful nice to have, particularly if they were hands-on ICs at the company that they're now a people manager at. I think that can kind of have benefits and drawbacks. I think the drawback is you still get pulled into the field probably a lot more than a people manager who doesn't have those skills. But I think the benefit is you immediately have credibility with your team and they know they can go deeper in terms of the ways that they need help. But like anything, I think it really depends. I think the skills that are harder to teach than any technical capability is the storytelling, that can you build rapport with people quickly. I think if those skills aren't there, it's going to be much harder to take someone who's technical and build that quote unquote soft skills. I think actually the soft skills are much harder to build. But again, lots of caveats in there, I think.
So true.
I would agree. I also think it depends on the product and company, right? As Brian mentioned, not every company or every product is very technical, right? If you think about, Lucid or Mongo or Snowflake's little world, right? Their products are generally technical in a sense, right? Because you're dealing with databases and servers and all that great stuff. But there are companies out there that are not as technical, and they're just in need of solutions or sales engineers as well. And so I don't think needing a technical background is absolutely mandatory. I know my sales leadership here at Clary, many of them come from bio backgrounds. They have no like technical or sales background at all. And I think going back to my original point, as long as you're coachable and you can take feedback, I think those are things that you can definitely learn. And the things that are harder to learn is being a people person, being able to communicate technical thoughts in simplistic ways, being able to storytell, being able to be that trusted advisor that people look to you internally as well as externally for guidance and information around how they should run their business, or in fact, perhaps change their entire workflow and their entire business. So I think those skills are hard to learn. I feel like technical skills you can definitely pick up on the job as you go. So from my point of view, I think maybe don't worry too much about not having a technical background, and shed some light and really promote yourself on things that you do have as a consultant, which is being able to communicate to people, being that trusted advisor, being that knowledge expert in certain domains. I think that will take you farther.
Awesome. Great stuff. I know we just have a few more minutes here, and let's go ahead and open it up. We're going to open up another poll, and while that's loading, I want to thank you. Again, our sponsor, Reprise. You can go to getreprise.com. It's REPRISE. And get your demo automation software demo and get some more information about it. We really appreciate it. It really helps us. Awesome. So I think while that's running, how do we do today? We just wanted to do a shout out here. We have another webinar September 15th. Why buyer enablement is your job. We have Julie Mall from Elastic Path, Garen Hess from Consensus. Garen, I get a lot of your emails. It's great stuff. Tina Phillips from ADP and Paul Harris from Offware. So really excited about next coming up in webinar. Please go to the PSC website and go ahead and sign up for that. But thank you again. Thank you panelists. Thank you Margot, Kelsey, Anmal, and again Reprise for sponsoring us. We had a great webinar, and it'll be recorded and put up on the PSC website soon. But thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the year.